Hello, Sanjana. Okay, so I've got. Let's just go the order that I have them, which is Kane, then Sanjana, then Michael. And switch over to screen share 1. Can everybody see my screen okay? Cool. Then I will just jump into it. So it looks like for Kane, your main feedback was most of it's blocking in 3s and 1s, first 108 frames. Just got into spline, starting cleaning curves, having trouble with eye lines, making sure they're actually looking where they need to. General notes, notes on pushing, facial posing, lip sync, etc. Cool. So let me just watch this through and then I'll get into it. I've already made a couple notes that I have that stuck out to me.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no...
So the first note that I have on this is that Apollo's shoulders are very difficult to animate in that you rotate them forward and they tend to extend very, very far, and they also lose a ton of mass. And so having animated Apollo before, you kind of have to almost scale the shoulders and scale X to maintain the mass, because when we rotate our shoulders forward, we really don't lose any mass at all, and they really don't extend in Y. So when I'm posing shoulders, I have to be very, very careful with scaling in X and almost scaling inwards in Y to keep nice graphical shapes in the shoulders, as well as also having to translate them. So it's the one downside to using the Apollo rig. His facial rig is amazing. It's the best one I've ever used. But his shoulders are an absolute pain to deal with. So what I would suggest is, in your reference, you have this very nice angle with his shoulders of screen right shoulder being higher and screen left shoulder being a bit lower. I would try to maintain that with the shoulders, maybe even push it a little bit, and try to get a nice line within the shoulders here. I have the paper here. And then another note I had is that I know in your reference, your arm is in like this. You have the outside arm and then you have the inside arm coming in. But because Apollo has such a massive chest, massive shoulder mass, you're almost foreshortening your elbow, having it exactly to camera. So like this is exactly blocking this back arm. And I think it would also push the pose if you were able to pull this outwards, almost like this. Just to get his arm out here like this, so he's, still the same hand pose, still the same essence of the pose, but getting it outwards is just going to keep it from foreshortening. Because I think you could also put it in here, but that's also going to muddy up his facial, and it's going to make it a lot more closed spaces and a lot harder for you to move things around.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
And then the same with here with Apollo's shoulders, is you also have to use a lot of rotate X to kind of get them forward. Really trying to get graphical shapes here within the shoulders, because they are the hardest part of Apollo. Trying to get, probably rotating this backwards in RX to get kind of this line gone, so that you just get this clean line of the collar. And that was going to be another one of my notes, is that I think I may actually have a sweater vest mod for Apollo, But I would try to find a different clothing set for his rig because the vest is so thick. It almost muddies the natural line of his body. He has a very, cut physique of like wide shoulders, very skinny waist. And because the geometry of his vest is so thick, it almost gives him just this overall like almost like roundish sort of feel to him, which makes it very hard to really push his natural character design and natural poses. So if possible, I would try to find or just delete the outside faces of the vest or the inside faces and make it much closer to his body, because as opposed to getting like this kind of overall shape on his body, which is very almost roundish, it would be nice if you could have the vest line being much closer to the body and getting this nice like C shape to him. So I think I may actually have one that I made that I can look into and possibly send you, but I would suggest very much trying to shrink at least the sweater vest before getting too far into like splining. That way you can really make sure his poses are refined. And then before I get into any lip sync or anything, there was one other note that I had is I would try to either use a locator trick or just have a gimbal control parented underneath the hat if the hat has a control, so that his hat is not just flat constrained to his head. That way you're able to animate the hat as well, because you'd be surprised at how much hat animation adds to a character and not feeling like it's just stuck on his head, because he has a bald head and he's got those horns that it's sitting on. So whenever he's moving around, getting a little bit of drag on that hat is really going to add a lot.
There's no clear way up.
Especially like here when he says clear away, like I can even see in your reference how the hat, because it's got this wide brim that catches air, you come down and it drags just ever so slightly and then pops down after your head.
Clear away, I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm...
And then right there, like when he pops his head up, just having a little bit of hat secondary animation is really, really going to help sell the performance, to really like, show that this hat is on its head, but it's not stuck there because, it's resting on top of those horns.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done.
I'm only one hit away.
Listen,
And then again, another note I had here with the shoulders is I'd try to just exaggerate, translating up a bit, how high you have, because he's really pushing his weight up on there and really trying to, get this arm maybe a little bit lower. Just trying to really push and like exaggerate the pose just a little bit to like push that line within the shoulders and open him up towards this guy.
Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no... You're done. There's...
And then here on this final pose, I would try to push just a little bit which it's probably not a huge change. You're just going to have to change where his butt lands on the chair. but I would like for this final pose to be a little more like relaxed. He's like, you know, he's like, you're done. Like he's the one in control. And so I really like in your reference how tucked under your hips are on the chair. And right here, it's almost like he's still leaning towards the character, even though he's leaning back in the chair. So I would really try to get his hips, like if, you know, just changing this much of what's underneath, getting more like this, is going to make him feel a lot more relaxed. Because it's going to feel like he's slouching. Right now, it feels like he's sitting up and leaning. Slouching those hips forward is going to make him feel a lot more relaxed, a lot more at ease. And so that's just a small thing. Like if you want to keep what you already have here, I would just take like the IK hips or whatever and just slide them over once his butt touches the chair. That way you don't have to move the entire like center of gravity control and rotate that, you know, depending on your preference. But the other note I had written down here was try to get the fingers to feel like he's holding something more. Like right now, the fingers are very turned in towards the piece of paper, which doesn't show like he's like pressing against it. So I would try to, if you can, clump these 3 fingers together and kind of get this pressure on the tips, like bending them backwards, to really show like he's holding this, and then separating the first finger a bit to get like this nice, you know, asymmetrical pose, as opposed to really bending this pinky finger off. I think that would probably be a little more successful. And then also probably bringing this corner of the paper down just a little bit so it's not tilted up so high.
Clear away, I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up.
You can't fire me.
You haven't. You
I might also, It feels like you're having a little bit of an issue here with you're not able to push his chair any closer to the desk because of this massive, like, scythe. But you're also not able to fully lean him back in the chair because his arm starts to hyperextend. So what I might end up trying to do is just rotate the chair a little more like this, so it's like closer in on this side and a little farther away on this side. That way you don't have his arm like cutting through the chair right here. So just rotating it just a little bit around, and then also rotating his overall body just a little bit farther screen right, and maybe pulling his shoulder a little bit farther forward. Just pushing things and pulling things just a little bit, because in your reference it's nice how he's just like, you can't fire me, and he like leans back, but right now it looks like his arm is out here and it's like pulling, like it feels very IK because you can feel it starting to stretch, which it's not a massive issue because it's only a couple frames before you cut, but I would still like very much like to like get him closer to the table. That way you don't see that, because it did pop out to me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But
You haven't made up your quota.
but I'm only...
And then on for the note, you were asking about eye lines, so I'll go over that real quick.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
So typically my rule of thumb with eye lines is I like to think of eyes as a 2D animator would, because at the end of the day, our 3D images are going to be turned into 2D images. It's just a 2D plane, even if we're working in 3D space. So if I have, you know, two pairs of eyes, if I have the eye right here, I'm going to try to have the other eye in the same spot. That way they're looking in the same space. Now you're going to have a little bit of convergence the closer someone's looking to something. Like if I'm looking something right here, my eyes are going to converge and they're going to spread out the farther away something is. And then you're also going to have personality types of endearing characters have a little more wide, like split vision because it's a little more endearing. Characters with eyes that are a little more converged are going to be a little bit more sinister, a little bit more off-putting. So you can always use that as a little bit of a personality trait, but to the general rule, I try to keep both eyes generally on the same 2D plane if I'm looking at the eyes very like graphically. So
Fire me.
You have...
So if I'm looking right here, like if he's saying quota, I think what you have is very close. I just might try color. Bringing this eye just slightly screen left, and bringing this eye just like ever so slightly screen right. To me, like, that way you have his eye looking here and you got his eye looking right there. So like you're very, very close. I think at some places you're just converging his eyes a little too much and to the left. So it just barely looks like he's looking off, but it's very close.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shake.
And then the same would be here, like this eye looks like it's going here, this one looks like it's going there. It's just a little bit too converged for my taste. So like I think this one is correct. You just want to get this eye a little bit lower and a little bit to the right. I might even want to bring these down just a hair. Something along those lines, just so it looks more like he's staring right at this guy.
Taking Stevens, you missed twice.
And if he's looking at the piece of paper, this eye feels way too high, almost like he's looking over here. So I would try to get this one just a bit lower, a bit more left, and I would try to get this one probably right about there. Just so I get both eyes looking down like he's looking at this piece of paper. This feels pretty good, just getting this eye over ever so slightly. I think this eye is good.
Twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's...
And then for the final pose, yeah, just getting this eye ever so slightly over. Yeah, so like you're very, very, very close. It's just certain areas that you're just a little bit too converged on your eyes, I think.
There's no clearer way I can say it. No, there's no clearer way.
So then moving on to like lip sync. Try to start thinking about how to push your lip sync to be more appealing, how to push, you know, your timing, your spacing, all of that, just like with body animation. So if just this section here,
There's no clear.
there's no clear away. I'm going to try to think about, okay, where do I have an extreme in? And how can I hold that so then I can punch my extreme out with the corners. So if he's like, there's no clear away, I'm really going to hold that O, like no clear away. That way you hit that like clear and really like pump those corners out. And then I'm also going to think about where I'm pushing my lip sync, either left of the face or right of the face. So if he says clear and I go with more of like a, yeah, you can see it here, more of like clear, and I like push to the right side of my face, then if I do that with the clear, then I'm going to try and push the O to be on the left. That way, no clear away. And that way you get a little bit of movement left to right of the mouth, separate from what the entire like squash and stretch control that you pull over in the eyes and all that. Trying to get a little bit of extra movement on the mouth can really create some nice contrast.
There's no clear. There's no.
And so for here, like if I'm saying like no, I'm going to try to get, yeah, blue works fine. More of like, obviously this is going to be drawn extremely pushed, but you know, take these notes, the essence of these notes, but don't use my terrible drawing because I can't draw it all. But like, you know, if you get like a ooh, like no clear, and like push this towards this side of the mouth, and try to keep the mouth small here. Keep the corners in. Then when you go out to the clear, you can get something. Something more like this with the mouth, of like there's no clear away, and really like push that throughout the face. So like I would try to push this nose to match the mouth, and so that, you know, obviously you're bringing the sneer up, which is going to bring the nose up a bit, and then that's going to bring the cheek up, so you're going to get this nice cheek line, and that's going to push the eye up just a little bit and scrunch up the eye. And obviously this is still down here. You've still got this nice line. So really pushing your lip sync to the left and to the right really creates a really nice line of action within the face without having to go to pushing the entire like head with the squash and stretch control.
There's no clear away, I can say. Clear away.
And knowing when to choose to pull it left and right, because if you do it too much, you're going to get a lot of jittering. You're going to get way too much movement on the mouth. But finding your sweet spots of, okay, when do I push my lip sync to the left and to the right, really going to sell a performance really, really nicely. And so
I can say this. You are done. You.
Also here, I really like the mouth pose. I might try to push the asymmetry of this, of just adding a sneer again on the right side of the face. And that's not good. Something like getting some sort of like graphical line like this, just again, so you can pull up the sneer, you can pull up the nose, just increasing how smug he is. And really getting some nice lines in the face, I think is really nice. Especially with this character, because he has so many controls. You can really like push the cheeks up and get like squints within the eyes. That's really, really nice.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But
Again, same here with like pushing to the left and right of the mouth. I really like what you have here. I would try to push it and really getting like you'll pushing the O here. Keeping it more to the screen right of his face for now. And then once he goes "ta," really pushing it out.
Quota.
But I'm...
And that also gives you like a nice... I may have pushed this just a little too much. That also gives you a nice arc in the mouth corner, like quota. Like it gives you like a nice like arc within the mouth corner where he's like in here and then it curves out and under to get this nice like pushed mouth expression. And again, you know, making sure the entire face is connected together.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer way up. There's no clearer way up.
Right here, I might try to pull the tongue just a little farther out because right now I can see it, but from that far away, it's a little hard to read. I might try to just pull it a little bit in front of the teeth. Just so it reads a little bit clearer because I did miss it the first couple times that I was watching it through.
You are done. All done.
Here, ooh, that was weird. Sync sketch is freezing on me. Here, I would try to do two things. I would try to make the teeth a little more graphical. So, let me color pick inside the mouth. Getting rid of the back side of these teeth. And then having them come around a bit more like this is going to give you a bit more graphical teeth shape. And having that through this entire section, because right now all I'm seeing is just the back side of the teeth, and I think it's a bit more appealing to have something more like this in the mouth. Especially here, having like, you know, something right here, and then getting rid of this. I think this is just a bit more appealing. And then for the tongue, whenever you say done, you really have to pop the tongue off the roof of your mouth. So having your tongue here is nice. I would just try to bring it, like, start to bring it down on this frame and then have it farther down here, and then have it right about here, just so you feel that you're done, and the tongue really like pops off the roof of the mouth.
Done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't.
Also for this guy, try to get that, you have a really nice F mouth pose here. Try to have that hit here, because I'm already hearing the f for fire me, and I just try to get that a frame earlier, just so that reads a bit better.
Can't fire me.
You haven't made up.
Fire me.
You haven't made up your quota. Made up your quota.
But I'm only one. But I'm only one.
Quota.
I'd also try to pop the jaw just to frame earlier. Because like this frame 180 is the last frame I hear the tuh, which tuh, you have to hit your T shapes early, because the noise you make from tuh is the tongue leaving the mouth, the roof of your mouth, as opposed to like a B shape, or no, not B, that's the same example, but an M shape, it's made in the mouth shape. T mouth shapes, the noise is made after the mouth shape. So on 180, the tongue would be coming off, and I'm starting to hear the after the quota. So I'd really try to open up the mouth on frame 181 as opposed to starting it on 182. So I like the speed and everything, and like the energy of it opening up. I think it just needs to happen one frame earlier.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed.
Hey.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer way I can.
I also think it might be nice, this depends on kind of your idea for this shot. I think it would be kind of cool if, you know, because he's, you know, the devil and he's telling somebody he's done, if he's a little more sinister about it. So instead of looking kind of sad, like, you're done, and he's like that, it might be nice if he had some sort of sinister smile on his face of like, you're done. And like just getting like a nice, like, again, really pushing the asymmetry on the face. But it would be nice if you could get some sort of smile on his face. Excuse my terrible drawing skills. Drawing to 3/4 has always been very difficult. But yeah, some sort of sinister smile where he's like, you know, smirking, but he's favoring the screen left side of his face, like, you're done. And like just like favoring this side of the face, I think would be cool. Now let me watch it one more time.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up. There's no clearer way I can say this. There's no clearer way I can say this.
Also, really trying to push the eyebrows to compress and decompress is going to change the facial performance and take it all the way to a 20. For me personally, somebody at work showed me how to do this. Just making a squash and stretch in like a pose library for just the entire eye mask area. I'll literally go into a rig before I ever start any shot, and I just take their default and I make a neutral, like the most appealing I can. And then I'm just going to take it, I'm going to squash it as much as I possibly can. Closing the eyelids, closing the eyebrows, pushing everything in. And then I'm going to make a pose library pose of that. And then I'm going to go back to my neutral pose and I'm going to spread everything. I'm going to make the eyebrows as high as I possibly can. I'm going to open up the eyes as shocked as I possibly can. I'm going to open up like the eye crease area. And I'm just going to make a really nice stretch pose, and I'm going to save that as a pose library. And then once I've gone through in my blocking and I've blocked out poses to be super, super appealing, I'm going to go through and I'm going to start putting in squash and stretch to my eye mask area. So like here,
There's no clearer way.
there's no clearer way. Like, I love how you're doing it in your reference. He's like, there's no clearer way. And I would really squash the face. I would really try to squash the face right here of like getting the eyebrows like farther down, get them like squashed. Something like that. Just so you're getting like this really nice squash and stretch and making the eye mask area feel super, super fleshy.
Clearer way I can say this. You are done. You are done.
And another benefit to the squash and stretch pose is a lot of times when I used to animate eyebrows, it was very time intensive and tedious to make the eye crease controls raise and lower with the eyebrows, which they do to an extent. And so for like right here, I noticed like
You are done.
his eyebrows are raising to a very extreme level, but his eyes and his eye mask control aren't moving at all, which makes it feel, the eyebrows feel very disconnected from the rest of the face. And so typically whenever like if my eyebrows raise very high, the eye crease is going to go from like, let's say the eye crease is here. Whenever you raise your eyebrows, it's going to go up to here, right? So the eye crease is going to raise and your eyes are going to open up just a bit more. They're going to flare open. So being able to do that with a pose library and getting everything feeling super connected before you ever hit spline. Then when you hit spline, all you have to do is you have to offset timing of things to make sure the eyebrows open up first, then the eye crease, then the eyelids, and just offsetting the timing, and then everything feels super connected and everything's working together because everything in the face is connected. So that would just be an overall note, is make sure with your eyebrow performance that not only are you raising and lowering the eyebrows, but that the eye crease controls and the eyelids are supporting the action of the eyebrows.
Are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only...
And then one last note about the eyebrows is making sure the corners of the eyebrows are always moving in an arc and circular settling. So if they're down and you move up into like this kind of a pose, they're going to arc in and then arc back out and settle. Or if they're up in like a surprise pose and you come down into like an angry, like furrowed brow, they're going to come out and then go in and kind of settle. It's like boom. So like I very much use like extremes and overshoots and squashing in between my two extreme eyebrow poses to really get nice organic eyebrow motion. And so I would try to make an entire pass of that, of like, let me find a section.
But I'm
here.
only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice.
So like here, if your eyebrows are right here in this section, and they're up here, the in-between would be more in like here, and they would come out so like twice, right? Instead of just going straight up, I'd try to arc it in. So let me watch it one more time
Twice.
through, and then I'll
You've
see
had
if
a
there's
good
any
run, but as of
final
now,
notes.
you're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no...
So my only final note on this would be when he's holding this pencil, I'm not sure how you have this constrained up. I'm sure it's probably just FK fingers. But if you could try to find to get some life in there, of like right now it feels very one to one that it's just moving with the entire hand. Trying to get some like motion of the fingers moving around and the pin dragging when he's moving it, or well, the cigar moving when he's dragging it, is going to add a lot of life to your hand performance. So other than that, unless you have any questions or anything, I think that's my main notes for you. So hopefully that helps. And if you have anything else, I'll give you a couple seconds to post anything, but that should be everything I had, just taking a quick look at it before class. But if not, I'll move over to Sanjana. And is Sanjana still here, I think? And let's get started.
Wow.
Sync sketch needs to refresh.
Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money?
Okay, so my first thought, like, with this shot is I'd like to get some contrast within the facial performance right at the beginning, showing a change. So, like, right now you're having her walk in and she's, like, wide-eyed and, like, looking around. And then she goes, like, wow. And so it kind of almost takes away from the wow because she's so wide-eyed at the beginning. Kind of the attitude I'm picking up is like kind of like a bratty rich kid valley girl kind of like attitude. So if she opens up the door, it might be nice if you could get some contrast in facial performance by getting almost like a closed lidded, like she's so bored she doesn't really care until she sees how nice the house is. And so like I just had Madison draw here, like eyes are half lidded, getting a little bit of like 3/4 in the mouth, of like shortening this side and making this side longer just so you have a more graphical, more appealing mouth shape as she walks in. That way you really sell this girl's attitude on the first image, because that's something that's very important, is always telegraph the attitude you're trying to sell on the first frame if you can. And so she walks in here and she's still like not amused. She walks in and she's like, wow. And then you really get to flare open that expression, really flare open that those eyes to where there's something like this, you know. That way you get way more contrast in the face. And then something else I wanted to point out quickly is I think you do a pretty good job through most of it, but there's certain areas that the overall shape of Aya's eyes I think could be more appealing. I think Aya's eyes are most appealing. Like, I think what you have here is just like you have a line here and then it kind of curves all the way up into this kind of an eye pose. I've seen Aya's eyes posed in many different ways, and the way I always find the most appealing is whenever you have almost like a straight line coming up from both sides of the eyes, and then you have a nice like swooping oval on the top, and then like that. So like that's the way I would pose Aya's eyes. I can find, I think, an example of what I'm talking about real quick. Yeah, I'll have to DM it later. But that's the main thing I'm trying to, like, an overall note I would say about her eyes is make her eyes kind of how I drew it, and then universally make her eyebrows the same shapes but a little bit higher, because it's making her forehead very large. And I would prefer getting like this, like a little bit taller eye shape, and then having a little higher eyebrows. That way you give yourself a little bit of room to have your eyebrow crease controls. And then that's the other note that I was going to have about the eyes, is make sure that you're utilizing the crease controls, because they're very, very important for your eyes. And so typically if you have like an eyebrow pose here and you have an eye pose here, I'm going to take the eyebrow crease control and I'm just going to try to blend between both shapes. So if I have this shape up top, this shape below, I'm going to take the crease control and I'm going to try to pull it out to be something along these lines, because this part of the eyebrow is almost like pulling it upwards, right? So that's a really ugly pointy line that I drew. Something along these lines for the eyebrow crease control. And the same here, trying to pull this out and getting something along those lines. And then for the under bit, like the under crease control, I try to just mimic the same lines I'm getting with the under eyelids. Unless, of course, you have something like this pose here. Boom. This pose here, you have the cheek going up really high, so you're actually exceeding the under eyelid control, which I think works. But that's just a main overall note I see with the posing, is like here, you need to take the crease control and pull it out so that it's not, the nose skin is not cutting over the eye. And then trying to pull this under crease out a bit so that you're kind of mirroring the same lines you're getting with the under eye. Something like that. But really trying to get this out a little bit more as well.
Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money?
And then that's another thing that I wrote down here is with a shot like this, because it's a very breathy shot and there's very loud, visible breaths, it's going to be extremely important right here, right now, to block in those breaths, right? So, like that, like, you really need to get, like, when she breathes in, getting those shoulders up, getting that chest out. When you breathe, if you look from the side, like, you're really pivoting from, like, the base of the neck. So oftentimes what I do is I use a temporary pivot, or I use a locator, and I just place it there and I constrain it to the chest and I rotate that locator so that I'm actually pivoting from the base of the neck and really getting her chest like out like that, because if you use her breath control, it literally just inflates her stomach and it looks terrible. So I wouldn't use the breath control, and I would use like shoulders. Whenever you breathe in, your shoulders come up. Whenever you breathe out, they come down, and really getting that chest involved in the breaths.
Wow.
And same here, like when she says wow, like wow, her breath is coming out, and I would try to, you know, block that in where her shoulders come down and her breath, her chest like comes down.
No wonder.
And then same here, like you really need to block in like no wonder people work, like really getting those breaths in, because those are one of the most important parts of this audio performance, and that's why I love it. And I know you have Ray Ross as your mentor, and he always says try to find audio clips with breathing or stuttering or something that adds interest beyond what the words say, is going to allow you to play with a lot. And so I like this audio a lot in that it has a lot of breath, so you really need to utilize that and make sure you're blocking those into your performance.
No wonder people work.
And then same here, like there's a really big breath like right here.
What am-
So I would just really try to block in all of your breaths. And if you need help, I can show you a way that I block in breaths. It's a little bit more complicated. I'll probably do a demo on it later. But if you like, I can do that at some point.
what am I going to do with all this money?
And then my next note would be I would try to hold the wine glass a little more underhanded, because right now it feels a little bit stiff because she's holding it right at the base, but it feels locked 1-to-1 with her hand, so it's just kind of like moving around and it feels very stiff. I don't know for sure because I don't drink wine, but I've seen a lot of people like they hold wine glasses like this, like in between their fingers. So like the wine glass is like the bowl part is here, and like it's underneath and the pole sticking out the bottom. Almost like if her arm was here. Like you've got the fingers here, you've got the wrist. Something along those lines. I'd try to hold it like that because then it feels more supportive and it doesn't feel as awkward if the movement is 1-to-1, which I would still suggest getting overlapping and like dragging a little bit, but that's for later on. But I would try to change this because it feels a little more supported than holding it down here with this kind of like closed off hand pose, because it's just not as graphically appealing to have the hand all closed off like this, as opposed to really getting it out and you have these fingers like nice out in silhouette and you have like the thumb here. Like it just has a much nicer like graphical pose to it that I think is a lot more appealing.
Wow. No wonder people work.
And you can also have a lot more performance like with the fingers part, because if it's out like this you can be like wow, and like you can open up your fingers because the fingers aren't supporting the glass, it's that it's sitting on your hand and your 2 fingers here in is what's keeping it. So you can go like wow, and you can like flare your hand out a little bit and then you can have a little bit of like life with the fingers, as opposed to this one like you're kind of locked to it like being down here. So
What am I gonna do with all this money?
pushing mouth shapes, overall eye notes.
What am I gonna do with all this money?
Again, kind of the same note I gave to Kane, is that for the eyes, I'd try to keep them a little more unified with how they're looking. So if this eye is looking over here, I would try to get this one almost the same. So you've got this here and this here. That's even a little bit more converged than I'd like. Probably move it just a little bit. Something more along these lines is like, that might be a little too spread out, but trying to keep the eyes looking in the same direction. Because she's looking off. Like if she's looking at a character very close to her, her eyes will converge more. But here, because she's looking at this big house, I would try to keep the eye line much more converged here, or much more straight on, less converged. Something more like that, just keeping the eyes looking same direction. Shrink this down. It's like something more like this, if you get the idea of like thinking of the eyes, like I said, like a 2D shape, and just keeping your eyes pointed in the same direction.
Wow. No wonder people work.
I feel like this is pretty good, like keeping them like here and here. I think that's pretty solid.
Work. What am I gonna do with all this money?
But yeah, just taking that and applying it to the rest of your shot, I think you'll be fine doing that.
What am I gonna do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money?
And then another thing that I think you said that you wanted some notes on body language, making sure the expressions were reading well. I think you can hit this final expression earlier of like listening to the audio. I feel like she's like, what am I going to do with all this money? Like, I think she knows what she's going to do. She's going to spend it. So she's like, wow, what am I going to do with all this money? Like, I feel like you can hit this expression.
What am I gonna do with all this money? What am I gonna do with all this money?
I think you could hit it here, or you could hit it even earlier, like at the start, where she's like, what am I going to do with all this money? And like getting like what you have here, but possibly pushing it even more. You got her eyes looking up. Trying to get this mouth line just a little bit more curved, because like it's almost like a straight line that the mouth is. I'd try to pull down this section here so you get a little bit more of a curved line in the mouth. Something along like this. And then I would try not to pull the eyebrows so far down without pulling the lids, because right now her eyebrows are coming down but her eyelids are staying up. And I think you could get away with almost having something along these lines with the lids, and then having the eyebrows just a tad bit higher, which is going to allow you to use the crease controls here. And just having the eyebrows, the same concept of the brows, but just keeping them a little higher, gives the same attitude, but it doesn't feel like the eyebrows are crushing in on the eyelids, if that makes sense. And at the same time, you could change that, and instead of having like, what am I going to do with all this money, and like squinted, like evil, cynical, I'm going to spend all your money kind of thing, you could also have her like more like, oh, what am I going to do with all this money? Like wide eyes, more like she's excited, like, oh, what am I going to do with all this money? So like there's two ways you can think about it, and you could honestly go with either one. I think both would be perfectly fine. So and then for the hopping around a fair amount here, but the tongue is sticking out to me in several areas. For the tongue, I just try to look at it on a post-to-post basis, and I think about it as if a 2D animator were drawing the tongue, to try to get as graphical shapes as I can. I'm trying to think of how I would favor this. I would probably try to get this side out farther and get this one in a little bit more shallow. That way you're really favoring this side of the mouth. And then I would try to, let me go ahead and just take a black pen. color this in. Get the teeth. Nope. Really get the teeth like much more graphical here. Like you don't even have to show them, but I'm just showing you like where I would place them. And then getting the tongue and having it more like this, I think makes a little more sense to me of like if I was looking at this tongue as like a 2D shape. Maybe not making it go that far back. I may have it disappear into the mouth a little bit later, but something along these lines. Maybe hiding it, making it a little bit smaller. Something along these lines, and obviously you're going to have the teeth in there. But I can't draw teeth very well. You know, you get the idea of the mouth pose of like really trying to push it to screen left and really getting that tongue in there and making it more graphical. And now that I'm seeing it with the teeth, probably making it a little bit more, something more like that, if that makes sense. And then here, same with the tongue, it's really pushing in like almost sideways. I would try to have something simple, just a tongue coming in around here. Something along these lines. And possibly having a little more teeth coming in. Nah, no under teeth, I don't think. Something like this with the tongue, probably.
Wow.
So like, I think you're almost there. Like, I think it's close. And one of the things that always helps me, which I'm not as good as like other people at drawing like tongues and stuff like that, but somebody told me to go look at like old 2D like phoneme libraries and like some of the old like 9 Old Men Disney stuff. And looking at that, you see kind of where they pose the tongue for every angle of a mouth shape. And it makes it a lot easier realizing where your angles are to just place that tongue exactly where you want it. And it makes it a whole lot easier for posing. So I would try to go through and look at like mouth and tongue and teeth posing and really just copy relatively close to what they have because it's some of the best out there. Not copying it 1-to-1, but taking the essence of the principles that they used and using them on this. I would also try to put the tongue somewhere around here, give or take.
Wow. No wonder people work. No wonder people work.
For this mouth shape, I would try to fix it a little bit. I would probably get rid of this mouth shape altogether, because it almost feels like it's this exact mouth shape flipped upside down. So it almost feels like you have this mouth shape and it just pops inside out. And then the other thing I would try to do is this mouth shape feels disconnected from the face because everything's connected. So if I move my mouth like here, the nose follows along with it. Or if I move it over here, it follows along with it. And your nose is curving this way, but your mouth is curving this way. So it feels very disconnected. So I would either go like, no wonder people work. And she's like got like almost like a pouty like mouth pose that's over here that follows with her nose line. Or if you want to keep what you have, no wonder people work, I would just move her nose to follow along, you know, with the mouth, which is really going to open it up and give you this nice graphical like line of action in the face, opening up this eye more, maybe having this eye closed just a bit more, also moving out the eye crease control. It'll just open up the entire face a lot more, and I think it will be really nice.
Work. What am I gonna do with all this money?
And then same here. If you're going to have this kind of a mouth shape, which I would suggest probably moving it down a little bit to somewhere around here. And then having the nose, you know, having the nose curve in, which I have it curve way too much here. Having the nose somewhere there, that way you get this nice like line of action in the face. And same here, making the nose follow where the mouth is.
Wow. No wonder people work. Wow. No wonder people work. What am I gonna do? Wow. Wow. No wonder people work.
And then the same for here. I would try to like, she's like, wow, which is like a very open, stretched expression. And then she goes like, I wonder people work. No wonder people work. And then so she squashes again, then she opens. So for this section here, I would try to really push the expression of like, no wonder people work. And like really squash it down. So I would try to possibly take this expression here and really try to close the eyes a lot. And then let's take this for the eyes. Getting the eyes still looking upwards, but because the eyes are closed, you're bringing them down. And then almost having the eyebrows exactly where you have them. And then having the eyebrow crease control to where you have roughly something along these lines for your facial pose. Grab this, you're gonna have this. You know, something along these lines of like, no wonder people work. And I'm going to go ahead and draw on the pupils here because that's kind of creepy. But I think this works. Just this, it's almost the same idea, but it's just squashing her face down, which you can even have her eyes come up even higher. Like, I'm not very good at drawing, but you could also move these eyes up a little bit higher and like curve the eyelids up a little bit higher so that you have a little bit more of a peak right here, which would give you the ability to have her look higher up in the sky. You can also tilt her head higher if you want her to still be looking like this angle. If you still want her to look up at this angle, you can always tilt her head up a little bit more too. But just trying to get her eyelids more closed, because I really like that about your reference of she goes,
Oh, no wonder people work.
no wonder people work. And like that really nice like compression to stretch is really, really nice. So I would try to keep that within your posing.
What am I gonna do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money?
But yeah, I think that would be my main notes for you, unless you have any questions or anything specific like that. I think that's the main notes that I had looking at your shot before I started the stream. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up Michael's, read up his notes. What's the question about the ring? Yes, Brandon, we're going to do a 24-hour stream, and I'm just going to look at your shot because it's so bad. It's going to take 24 hours to give you all the notes I have on it. Let me check the size.
Wow.
I think it's fun. I think the size is nice. It didn't distract me. I think it just kind of added to the persona of like she's this like, you know, super snobby bratty girl that's like all about money, so she's like trying to wear big jewelry to show how wealthy and how much money she has. So like I thought it was a nice like little add-in to the personality. So I think the size works. I don't think it's too big. So.
No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money?
Yeah, I think it's fine. So next we have the last crit, which is Michael. Which I don't know if Michael's here. Well, no problem. But if not, I will go ahead and give him the crit, and he can just watch the recording. So I'm going to take this in 2 sections because it's a really long shot, and I have a lot of ideas about the second half. So I want a little more time to look at the first section, but I really want to focus on the second section because talking to Michael, I think he was mainly wanting to get to like the fight stuff and like really work on some pushed like body mechanic stuff. So I'm going to focus on that for this week. And if we get that to a good spot, I'll probably move to the first section next week. But I had a couple notes here for the very first bit. So he's jumping, right? And he's jumping up like this, and he's chopping down. And so right now it's from a very close, almost like perfect side view. And so in order to get more contrast, more dynamic motion, instead of going straight back and up and straight down, I want you to turn towards camera, which is also going to allow you to see more of the body. So instead of going straight up like this and straight down, try to go like this and twist your torso towards towards camera. And then when you swing, that's going to allow you to go away from camera. So instead of going like this and this, you're going like this and you're swinging and you're getting more dynamic like rotation in the chest. And so if I was to show where this was facing, you've got like the face is like right here and you've got the sword like right here. You're getting a way more pushed pose. And then when you land here, I'm also going to suggest adding a little bit of time before swinging again after this big hit, because the bigger the hit, the more anticipation and the more resolve you're going to need before going into something else. That's why big, heavy characters take so long to hit and so long to recover, as opposed to small, light characters can swing super fast, super quick, and there's no recovery, really. And so if you really want to feel this jump and hit to be powerful, I would try to add a little bit of time swinging before going into the next thing. And so if he's in this dynamic pose here, boom, I want you to get in something more like this. A little more straight on for right here. You've got the sword, you're hitting with the sword. You've really got your whole body into it, so I want to get that head more in, because like leaning back when you're swinging, you can't swing very hard with your head and your neck backwards. So if you're swinging, boom, get that chest, that neck, that head forward and into the swing. And then you got this foot here. And then you're going to get so I'm honestly suggesting changing this section of the animation. I'm realizing now that he's swinging left. So probably what you're going to do here is you're going to have him facing away from camera. So it's the exact same pose. It's just flipped away from camera, because you're having him swing from right to left, which is why the sword's in front of his body here. So he would jump, and he would have this same pose that I said, except it would be away from camera like this. And then as he swings, boom, he's going to rotate towards camera. So it's the same idea, it's just flipped opposite, because I realized that he recovers left like this. And so once you're here, swinging, I'm going to try to get a much more clear pose right now for an anticipation. So really trying to, you've got the foot here, you've got this foot here. Trying to open his body towards camera. And giving his sword a place to be, to get these nice clear poses is really key. Because if his arms and his, sword is in front of his face, it's really going to muddy the silhouette value. So for your key poses, your anticipations before you swing, if you can get the sword out here instead of being here, it's really going to give you a lot of value in silhouette. So then you can hold this pose here over a few frames, swing, and then get it out here, like out here. So that way it's not like in front of the face and making these super muddy poses. Honestly, I think I could probably even push this a bit more if I wanted to. Get this here, get this here. Something like this. And I'm guessing you're cutting between reference here, so you're going more into anticipation even though you're swinging this ref, so more of an anticipation. It goes to this here. I think you should probably go already into a swing because that's what you're doing in your ref, and I think the cut in works pretty well. So I wouldn't try to swing the sword back here. I would try to see, the body pose is pretty decent. Shut this off. I'm going to try and have him stand up a little bit higher to straighten out this leg because you're kind of muddying up the silhouette of your legs. So I'm going to try and clean up that silhouette a little bit of getting this leg out front, this one out behind. Getting a more leaned in pose here. And then start to this is going to be a pretty fast action. Get those arms out like you're swinging and drag the blade of that sword so you can get a really nice smear action. And like I said before, get the sword down and clear it out away from his face, because with fast action fighting shots, clarity is the most important thing, and clear, crisp poses is the absolute best. And I'm actually gonna show something here. I'm sure it'll be fine, but hold on one second. Okay, this is a fight scene from Raya and the Last Dragon, and honestly, it's done by Daniel Stewart, who is a extremely talented animator. And this is like what I'm talking about when I'm talking about clarity and poses being the most important thing for fight scenes. Is every pose is dynamic, every pose is perfect, and every pose is clear. Boom. Here's one pose for Raya. I'm looking at Raya over here. Everything is clear, you can see what everything is doing, and everything is leaning into the action the character's about to go. Again, pose here. Everything is perfectly clear. You go back. Another amazing clear pose. Everything is so dynamic. Everything hits so well. And everything is always very easy to see. And the characters' faces are barely ever have things in front of them or sitting in front of them. If anything flashes across the face, it's 1 to 2 frames. Which is why this fight scene is such a good fight scene, because everything is clear, the timing is crisp, the spacing is crisp. So that would be my suggestion for this, is keeping the body and the hands away from the body, definitely keep it away from the face, and keeping things clear, and thinking of the body as a, line of action. If you're leaning forward and you're about to swing, your body's going to lead into it, starting with the shoulders before the arms go into it. And so here, again, got this kind of a pose. So here, probably even trying to get this leg here. Probably not lean him as far back, but his arms, head. Boom. Into a nice, again, twisting the body around, getting it open towards camera. The hips. Something more like this. Here, I think it would probably be cool if you could get the head over here. Possibly clear out the silhouette. Getting the arms roughly in this direction. Obviously, you're going to have to play with it because my drawing is not accurate to 2D. From 2D to 3D. But getting the arms roughly in this area, getting them out like this, is going to be way more dynamic, and it's going to clear it out from the body, like I've been saying. Erase this. Something along these lines of a drawing. So that way you're like, whoosh. And you're really like throwing the body of like swing. And the body is going like, when you're back here, it's leaning forward. You swing into it and the body goes backwards. Boom. And it gives much more weight because you're thrusting your hips into that swing. And also not swinging along this line the entire time because that's a straight, it's a straight line. So like trying to swing down and come up, or swing up and come down on an angle instead of straight side to side the whole time. And yes, what Conman says, try to skip those dirty frames, as in like in front of the face, by accelerating the motion, making the motion faster, so you skip past the point of blocking the face if you can. That way everything is always perfectly clear, if that makes sense. And here, trying to, again, lead and follow. You come back with here, you lead with the body, and then the sword overtakes. Right now, it's almost like the body and the sword are moving at the same time. Try to really make sure, like, the sword's back here, the body starts to turn. So let's go ahead for the next frame. Drag the sword. Let's say the sword's now right here. And then we have it, maybe we have a smear frame. And then it's here. Boom. And then it pops back. So if I'm just talking about the sword action, which is one of the most important things, you have wham. You have holding the anticipations. Probably want to go a little more here, probably a little more straight on. Something like that. Something like that. Wham. Something like that, probably. Turn tracing paper down. So that's there. Going to want to lean the body into it, but keep the body leading the action. The legs here. You still have this arm coming around because, you know, you're still holding the sword as it swings around. Keeping the head down. The smear's not perfect. Needs to be more. Say the sword is here, but we have a nice smear frame. Nice smear frame here. Boom. Still leading with the elbows a little bit. And trying to get the body involved in that when you're swinging forward. So right now he's like swinging and his body's staying very stiff. So trying to lean into the swing. So getting the hips probably back at this point. Getting that neck forward into that swing. Wham. And he hits. So obviously I'm exaggerating these poses to hit these clean lines, but I'm also exaggerating the motion to show you what I'm wanting. But it will be up to you to kind of make sure you hit this motion, but you don't hit it too big because it is very fast swings. So you need to hit the essence of the body working together and leading and following and hitting, but you don't need to make sure you don't push it too far because then you're going to be like moving all around when you're trying to swing really fast, and the main motion needs to be the sword. So try to take what I'm drawing and use it to an extent that it works with how fast he's swinging his sword, but don't do it too much, if that makes sense. Again here. I'm gonna try and keep the sword from being up here at your face. I'm gonna try and bring it down here to the chest line so that you're not covering up the face. Or I'm gonna try and move it up above the head so that it's, again, cleared above the face. So if I'm watching this move here, let's just go ahead and try to push this pose. So he's going down. I'm gonna wanna push these hips farther down like this, so that he has more power to swing. Because the farther the hips come down, the more he's able to slam that sword down to the ground. So here I'm gonna go, so there's the down post. So I'm gonna try to probably do a pose something along these lines. Getting the arms bent, really. Maybe getting the head. No, I don't like dragging the body like that. So I'm gonna try Just really pushing the body into it more. Dragging the angle of the sword. Boom. Here. Bending this leg a little bit. Getting the arm like this. Getting the sword out like this. That way you're clearing out the silhouette and you're not hyperextending those arms. I like this pose pretty well. I think it's nice. Anticipation pose. I'd try and get this arm down a bit probably. So you're just clearing out the silhouette. Again here. Try to lead with your hips. So that his body is coming around. Like this, and you're dragging where that sword is, so the sword is probably more out here. Think of this move as almost like a baseball pitcher, or a baseball, someone swinging a baseball bat, in that they lead with the hips and then they swing. Like that's almost the kind of move you're going with here. And so you're really gonna like drag that torso, lead with the hips. Turn down the frames that I'm holding. Turn this to sketches. Three. So again here, trying to lead with the hips, drag that upper torso. Getting this arm out here. And then again, here, so I'm gonna still try to get, still gonna get these hips leading and driving this action. I'm gonna try to get the arm, because again, when you're swinging, up here is not where your most power is gonna be. It's gonna be right along the side of your chest. You know, that's where you do like bench press. If you do chin-ups, it's right along the line of your chest, because out here is not as powerful, or up here is not as powerful. You can't really do bench press or anything like that up here or down here, because this is the line that your arms are on. So if you're swinging, or the same as with frisbee golf, if you're trying to really throw a frisbee really far, you want to throw it right along the line of your chest or a little bit below, because that enacts your entire, the core of your body, all the abs, the chest muscles. Up here is not as strong, so you don't want to swing up here. You want to swing down here, or if you're swinging up and then down, this also uses your entire core, but up here to the side doesn't work quite as well. So here's the head. Boom, boom. again, I'm realizing that you're swinging more down. So like here, probably needs to be, like I was saying, where you go straight up and straight over. In which case you'll need to have this arm up here. You'll need to have this arm here. And you need to get that sword way up above top. Boom. So here you're going to have the hips. But I'm going to still keep this chest twisted around. Let's erase this. I'm gonna try and keep the sword. Boom, boom, boom. I think the sword feels pretty good. Like you can push the sword farther, I think. I think you could hold it farther back than this. But I'm just gonna draw it from here. Getting the head around here. It's like, it's almost the pose that you have. What I'm not liking 100% from this pose is that he immediately goes from his back turned from camera to popping over to where his stomach is turned, and then it almost sticks. So it's like his back is to camera, and then he pops here, and then he goes here. I'd rather it be like, boom, a nice smooth motion. So I'd rather him be more turned away from camera here, so that way he turns a little more towards camera here, if that makes sense. Bam. So if I just turn on ghosting and I play this through with held sketches, that's what I'm imagining for this move, is really pushing the line of action in the body to get, like, leading with the hips first. Let me go ahead and turn ghosting down. Really leading with the hips here, especially, like getting those hips way out. And then even probably what I need to do here is start pushing the hips farther back than you have them. Boom, boom. And getting the hips farther back here. Boom. And here, if I'm looking at your reference, you're leading very much with your right shoulder and you're holding back with your hips. Right now you're in a very straight line. So try to match what you have in your reference. You're leading with that right foot. You got the leg here. Really get that sword. I probably push the sword somewhere. Whoops. Probably push the sword somewhere around here. Get that neck out. Right in here still. Really getting that line of action in the body. And again, dragging the sword, because like you've got the sword up here. Don't be too anxious to bring the sword down when you're doing a big swing like this. I'm gonna bring this arm. I'm gonna bring this arm more over so I can get it out away from his face. And probably move his neck over like this just so it's clean. He's gonna boom, and then you're gonna hit somewhere around here, and you're gonna get those arms into it. So yeah, that's... I'm gonna bring this up just a bit more now that I'm looking at it. Maybe his arms are up here. Bam. Something like that. Like I could even see the sword being still a bit more like here. Bam. But I think it's probably better like this. Boom. But that's my main notes, is like when you're swinging a sword, you're gonna want to have to push your reference a lot of like how far back you anticipate, and then swinging and pushing the frames that you swing, and really getting your hips or shoulder to lean, and then when you swing that sword, following through with that body and that torso and that head, and keeping your poses nice and clean, nice and crisp, and think of the body as a line of action and really pushing the character where he wants to go. So that's my main notes on this section of the animation. I'll probably go through the first bit, which is more of an acting shot. So like these two sections here, I'll probably go over more next week, but these are my main notes for this week, really trying to get the body mechanic part right, because I think that's what you talked about at the first of the term, is that you really wanted to work on body mechanics and making sure your poses were nice and clear. So that's my main notes on that one, which I don't think Michael's here tonight. So if you have any questions, just DM me whenever you watch the recording. So, and with that, looks like we're running out of time pretty quick here. It's almost a 2-hour stream, so that went pretty long. It's nice to be able to take a lot of time for just a few critiques now. So let me check here who all we have in the stream. Nice. Oh, if anybody has any questions, I've probably got about 5-10 minutes here, but if not, we can probably end the stream just a couple minutes early. But if not, I'll probably just end it here. I probably have a little more work to get done before I go to bed. So thank you guys for coming to the stream. Thank you guys for submitting your shots, and let me take a look and give you some feedback. Hopefully it was helpful. And I will see you guys in the next stream.